Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Welcome back to the royal news. So let's see what's been happening. The first story comes from MSN, dated January the 19th, 2025. King Charles is hit with sad news as he prepares to return to Buckingham Palace duties this week. This story is by Ed Griffins. King Charles and the royal family have received disappointing news as their beloved greengrocer, Partridges, announced the closure of its flagship Chelsea store after 53 years. The historic shop, which was awarded a royal warrant in 1994 and recently received another from King Charles, has been a trusted supplier to the royal household for decades. The closure marks the end of an era for the family-run business, which has been a fixture in Chelsea since its establishment. The announcement comes as a personal disappointment for the king, who had only weeks ago granted the establishment his own royal warrant. Despite the closure of the Chelsea location, Partridges will continue to operate in its Gloucester Road shop with plans for a new outlet in 2025. John Shepherd, who co-founded Partridges with his late brother, Sir Richard Shepherd, expressed sadness about the departure from Chelsea. He said, "We are very sad to be leaving Chelsea after an incredible 53 years serving local residents. Although our Chelsea chapter is coming to an end, we're looking forward to building Partridges in smaller and more sustainable shop formats across London." Shepherd highlighted the company's recent achievements, including reaching carbon neutrality at both stores and receiving a new royal warrant from King Charles. The business has been deeply involved in local community, creating a fine food market on Duke of York Square and raising over £30,000 for the Children's Surgery Foundation. The second story comes from The Telegraph, dated January 13th, 2025. The king will become the first British monarch to visit Auschwitz, which marks the important 80th anniversary of its liberation later this month. The monarch will join heads of state, presidents, and prime ministers from around the globe for a poignant remembrance ceremony at Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum and Memorial in Poland, January 27th. The king, who is the patron of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, hosted an event at Buckingham Palace on Monday to hear about various initiatives designed to ensure that the experiences of the Holocaust survivors are never forgotten. He was joined by Manfred Goldberg, 94, who survived a succession of labor camps, including Stutthof in occupied Poland, as well as a death march, discussing his plans to attend the commemoration. "I feel I must for the 80th anniversary," he said. "It's so important." Speaking of the small number of Holocaust survivors still alive to share their stories, the king added, "I can't bear the dwindling number left behind." The monarch has spent decades working to ensure the Holocaust is never forgotten, and has previously described how it had been inspired throughout his own life by survivors' stories of immense bravery and sacrifice. In June 2015, Elizabeth II visited Bergen-Belsen in northern Germany, marking her first and only visit to a Second World War concentration camp. However, the only senior royal figure to have visited Auschwitz is Queen Camilla, who attended the 75th anniversary commemorations there in 2020. Mr. Goldberg said he was full of admiration for the way the king had decided not to keep silent about the Holocaust and to show the world where his sympathies lay, adding, "Silence never helps the oppressed, it always helps the oppressor." He said, "I think it's an outstanding affirmation by His Majesty that he fully understands the colossal injustice and atrocity that was perpetrated against the Jewish people during the Holocaust. He seems to have made it an active component of his life to do what he can to ensure that people become aware." Mr. Goldberg is one of the 4 Holocaust survivors whose stories form a part of a new educational program which uses AI and virtual reality technology to allow children to chat with them face-to-face, as if in real time. The king watched a demonstration of the program called Testimony 360. People in places of the Holocaust asking Mr. Goldberg through the computer, "What is the message that you really want to leave people with?" The digitalized Mr. Goldberg replied that he would like people to realize that indifference is a very dangerous response to the injustice. The king was also told about the initiative called 80 Candles for 80 Years, with each holder highlighting the life of an individual or community persecuted by the Nazis. He was shown a display inspired by Anita Lasker-Wallfisch, who played the cello and the women's orchestra at Auschwitz, before lighting a candle in the memory of those killed in the Holocaust and more recent genocides. Our third and last story comes from the Telegraph, dated January the 17th, 2025. Podcast staff needed therapy after working with Meghan, reports claim. Vanity Fair magazine alleges workers took time off or sought counseling after being put under very painful strain. This is by Victoria Ward, deputy royal editor. Podcast staff needed long-term therapy or took extended breaks from work after working with the Duchess of Sussex, Vanity Fair has claimed. The magazine recounts a source alleging that the strain Meghan put on her colleagues when things went wrong was really, really, really awful and very painful. She's constantly playing checkers. I'm not even going to say chess, but she's very aware of where everybody is on her board, the source told the publication. And when you're not in, you have to be thrown to the wolves at any given moment. The allegations come in a lengthy profile of the Duke and Duchess marking the 5th anniversary of their departure from the UK. The high-profile magazine said it spent months speaking to dozens of people who have lived and worked with the Sussexes to establish how their new life has panned out. The resulting 8,000-word cover feature paints a picture of a couple whose approach to their new careers in the world of show business has not always been well received. Prince Harry is portrayed as a naive, lonely figure who has failed to make any friends and is desperate to reconnect with his family. One source suggested that he did not necessarily realize the powerful impact that his tell-all memoir, Spare, would have. The Duke's idea for a Spotify podcast is gently mocked. Dubbed a sociopath podcast, he reportedly wanted to interview powerful men with complicated stories, such as Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and Mark Zuckerberg, about how their experiences turned them into sociopaths. The Duke is said to have said, "I have had very bad childhood trauma, obviously. My mother was essentially murdered. What is it about me that didn't make me one of those bad guys?" Meanwhile, the Duchess is portrayed as a ruthless boss who treats those who fail to impress her with contempt. One person is quoted as saying that this manifested as undermining, added, "It's talking behind your back. It's gnawing at your sense of self, really like Mean Girls teenager." One source told the magazine, "You don't tell the couple no," adding, "I left because I couldn't live with myself anymore." The allegations are reminiscent of previous bullying claims made against the Duchess, which has always been hotly denied. In 2018, Meghan was the subject of a palace bullying complaint amid concerns that the Duchess was able to bully two PAs out of the household. The findings of an official investigation into the way Buckingham Palace handled the allegations was kept secret. On settling in the U.S. in 2020, the Duke and Duchess signed lucrative deals with both Netflix and Spotify as they sought financial independence. Vanity Fair quotes one person who was excited to begin working with the couple on media projects and did not believe reports that Meghan had bullied palace aides. After working with her, this person realized, any given Tuesday this happened. It is alleged. You can be yelled at even if somebody doesn't raise their voice. It's funny that people don't differentiate between the energy of being yelled at and literally somebody screaming at you, the source said. Two sources claimed that one colleague who had ties to the Meghan Archetypes podcast, released in 2022, took a leave of absence after working on just 3 episodes. Several others are said to have described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny, exiting their job, or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan. One is quoted as saying, "I think if Meghan acknowledged her own shortcomings or personal contributions to situations, rather than staying trapped in a victim narrative, her perception might be better." Not for the first time, the Duke and Duchess are portrayed as a couple who do not fully understand the cutthroat world of show business and have few good ideas. Among the podcast ideas pitched to Prince Harry were said to be one that involved him reviewing a hot chocolate every week while chatting with a different friend, and another that would see him fix something each week, from a flat tire to global warming. One former Spotify employee is quoted as saying, he wanted to do a podcast about disabled people who compete in the Invictus Games, but there's no crossover between the audience who would listen to that and the people who want to hear about Harry's life. The Duke is described as someone who does not enjoy fame and would happily work for charities for the rest of his life, and would be happy if Meghan made all the money and he didn't need to. I think Harry doesn't know what he wants because he grew up in a fishbowl, and so he doesn't know what real life really is. one source told the magazine. "I think he probably wants to be left alone and be able to go kiss babies every once in a while, but not have to worry about money. I don't think he wants to be famous the way Meghan wants to be famous." I could picture him meeting Meghan and just being a deep breath of like, "I've been so exhausted, and you make everything so easy." I don't want to be like, "Oh, it's an Oedipus thing," or whatever, but it kind of feels like she's reparenting him in a way. The Duke and Duchess office did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. Well, that's the end of the news for the week, and I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. And I hope everybody's doing well, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.